Yeah, I'm happy to be here that we can talk about front end and about what you will do as a can do as a front end developer. What's the position about, and what does it mean at all? So that's somehow for all people that are interested in front end development at all, but also for the people that are already front end developers, because I think you can also learn some things here maybe you didn't saw before. So yeah, first about me, I'm Marcel Frank. I'm a team lead or a full stack developer. So I'm leading a full stack development team at the Decades AG. And before that, I did an apprenticeship as an IT specialist for application development. And next to that, I'm doing side projects as a freelancer. For example, those things as I'm doing here now as a lecturer for Codecademy. The programming languages I'm working with are Java, JavaScript, or more TypeScript and React. There are some things around it for sure, but those four things are the main languages I'm working with. And about me, about my interests, I like logical challenges, a bit UI, UX design, and also app development is a part I really like and are interested in. But let's jump to the agenda for today or for this session. First of all, I would like to talk a bit about theory. So what is front-end development? What does it mean? Then I would like to compare the different developer roles, like the front-end developer, a back-end developer, and there's also a full-stack developer. We will take a look there. What are the focuses, the technologies and things they do. Then I will mention the keywords HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, what is really important and a fundamental thing for front-end development. And after that, we will talk about some other things you need as well to become a good front-end developer. At the end, I will mention some frameworks and also give you an overview which of those frameworks are the most popular and where you can get a nice job with maybe. But after the theory, I would like to show you some practice that you can see how it looks like. It will just be a small project. I named it Disney Parallax Wall. So it will be a wall where you see some Disney movie covers and they have a nice animation. So let's see how that works. But first, start with the theory. What's front-end development? So as a front-end developer or in front-end development at all, you will take care to develop a user interface or user experience. You will see also those keywords like UI and UX as a short term. So the front-end developer takes care of that on websites or also web applications to make it visual and focus on the visible or interactive elements that the user can work with. And as I mentioned before, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are somehow the fundamental technologies those front-end developers use. But about those three words, I will talk a bit more later. So what the front-end developer is doing as well, they take care to have a responsive design. So at least in the current time, it's really important that your application runs on mobile devices, tablets, or also on the desktop or bigger screens. So the front-end developer has to take care that the design is nicely aligned to the given device. At the end, also to make it a bit more fancy and also give a good user experience to the user, the front-end developer takes care that there are some smooth animations, that it's not like flickering or things like this, and that you have good interactive features that the user maybe doesn't have to do that much or has to search a lot on the page or whatever. So that's what the front-end developer is taking care of. So let's take a look also at the other roles that are there. You see here, I can compare three of them. The first one we talked already about is the front-end developer. As I mentioned, the focus will be the user interface and the user experience because that is something that's visible to the user, and that's where the front-end developer is working at. The technologies, again, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is there to create and also style web pages, but also web applications. Or in general applications. And next to those technologies, you can also extend those technologies by frameworks or other things on top. So those technologies are the fundamentals, but you can extend it by others. Then again, the responsibility, they take care of the look and feel of a website or application, like animations, and also ensures the responsiveness. Examples for like tasks for front-end developer or responsibilities are like UI components, that they maintain them, make them up to date, maybe add their modern designs or whatever. They take care of layouts of websites, of applications at all. They take care of components like buttons, forms, navigations on page, and everything that is presentive to the user at the end. So the next role is the backend developer. That's completely the other side. So a backend developer does not really has a contact to a user as a view. So what the backend developer is working at is nothing that the user sees. So it's more the logic at the back end, as it's called also here. So that's something that the front-end developer is using to make some, I don't know, calculations or get some data there, or get the data from a database or things like that. So that's what the backend developer is taking care of. And also things about like database management of applications, that they set it up and things like that. They have different technologies like Python, Ruby, Java, PHP as programming languages. There are much more, just to mention a few of them. And then also they take care of databases, where you have also something like MySQL, PostgreSQL, and there are also many more. So the responsibility here is to manage data and do some computations and interact with databases, and also give some, maybe endpoints or APIs to the front-end developer, that the front-end developer can take those data and use it in the front end for the user. Besides that, the backend developer handles also things like user authentication, that you ask for password and username or things like that, and do in general business logic. If your app has some logic, that's what the backend developer takes care of. Examples are like server configurations, database management, or as I mentioned, also those API development to have a communication to the front-end developer. Now the last role, that's the full stack developer, what's somehow a combination of both. So full stack developer is taking care of somehow everything in the development part. So it's taking care of front end and back end to create a whole application. So if you have a full stack developer, you don't need an extra front end developer or back end developer. This guy can do both of it. So that means that this full stack developer needs skills in HTML, CSS, JavaScript at all, as well as the front end developer as well. And like the backend developer, he needs also a programming language to write some backend code, and also knowledge about databases and data management. So the responsibilities is somehow again a combination of both. So he can work and handle end-to-end development, from designing UI and also managing databases, or providing APIs that the front end can get some data from any server or whatever. So examples are, like as I mentioned before, this full stack developer can work on a whole application on its own. So to develop an entire web application, or work on front end or back end components as one person. So that's about the roles. And now, as I promised, I would like to tell you the fundamental technologies for full front-end developers, as this is the topic for today. So I mentioned them a lot now. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are fundamental things you need as a front-end developer. At the end, you will see not much people that are working with plain HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. There are a lot of frameworks on top of it. But if you start to be a front-end developer, those things are the fundamental things you have to know. And then it will be very easy at the end to extend to other frameworks or tools. So what is it doing? So here's a nice comparison image to a human. So human exists also based on parts. So for example, a skeleton that makes us like, or gives us the structure and the form. Then the second one is the skin. So we have also clothes on us, or we have a face, we have a skin at all. And that's what makes us individual. And the last thing is the brain, or the nerves we have, where we can do things with. So we can control our arms, we can control our feet and things, everything we do, we can control with this brain. And the same thing is there for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if you have a front-end application, let's say you have a website, you want to build a page, the first thing you have to do is to have a structure. So you build a structure like you have a header, there you have maybe an image, you have a navigation bar, then you have a content, then you have a footer maybe at the end, things like that. And that's done in HTML. You want to put some text there and make it like in a position that it's next to each other. And you make the structure at all of this website, and that's done in HTML. So it's a hypertext markup language, that's what it's called. And this is what you do with it. The second one is the skin. It's CSS, it's cascading style sheet. There you can define some identifiers to change the color or the style or everything that's related to styling in your HTML. So in HTML, let's say you have an element defined for the header, or for the header, for example. And in CSS, you can define the height, the width, you can define the color of this, you can define how it should change if you have a smaller screen, if you have a bigger screen, things like that. So the whole design is done in CSS. They just write, or you have your own syntax, and you can write some properties there that the browser knows what or how it should look like. And at the end, the last thing is the brain. So if you want to have, for example, a website where you click, for example, on a button, you should have a new dialogue, you should have a form where you can fill in things, you can interact with the website. You need a brain, and that's JavaScript here, where you can define the logic of the front end. So that's what those three technologies are doing, and that's what you need also for each web application you want to develop. So let's go to the requirements. As I mentioned already, you need HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That is fundamental. So if you want to start to be a front-end developer, take care of it. You have to learn all those three things. Then for sure, very important, I mentioned it as well, responsive design. As of today, this is really important because of a lot of people are want to be flexible. They are walking with its phone and they want to check a website or whatever, and it should look nice. It should work on the mobile. It should work on the desktop. It should work on bigger screens, smaller screens, everything like that. And you don't want to have small text or things like that if you're on mobile, and vice versa, also on desktop or whatever. So you have to take care of responsive design, and you have to understand how you can define those different designs for different devices. Then the last thing are JavaScript frameworks. As I mentioned already, a lot of people or there are a lot of developers out there, but you will not find a lot of them that are working with plain HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The most of them are using frameworks. At least the modern applications, I would say, are built on it. And here you see three of them: React, Angular, and Vue.js. That are the most popular frameworks, I would say. There are a lot of them out there, but just to mention a few of them. Here I mentioned only JavaScript frameworks. There are also frameworks for CSS, for example, that you can extend the language and have some extra features. Beside those hard skills, you need also some soft skills, at least I think so. So I would recommend that if you start a front-end developer, check yourself if you have those skills, because this is something you will need there, I think. The first thing is communication. What's really important, because as a front-end developer, you build the UI, you build the thing that the users will see, you build the thing that the customer you have will see. And that's really important, because that's something they will work with. And normally they do not see, for example, something like how it's stored in a database or how you get the data or how you save the data, that's something they do not really see. So it's not important for them, and they don't see it every time. For sure, it should work, but different to the front end part, that's something they work with, and that should be something that should be nice for them as well. So there will be a communication. You have to check how they want it, what they expect, and get feedback from them and also work with it. Then you need an attention to detail, because again, that's something the users will see all days. And you have to check all cases. You have to check maybe to make it smooth, that it will not lag somehow around, and that you have a good application that has a good flow, and you have to check that the details are good and everything is fine and you don't have small bugs or whatever. Then adaptability. So you have to, check that out as well, because you have to build a software that works for a lot of things, and there are things that change and you have to take care of it, and maybe it requires some changes as well, so you have to adapt. Then the one thing as well, collaboration, somehow connected to communication as well, but you have to work together with your customer. It's not like you get the task and you do it on your own. That's something, that's what I said before. It's like a communication between them and you. You have to take care that at the end they are happy with the product at the end. And you have to take care also that you maybe think about their opinion, about their feedback, and that at the end the product is good for them. Also, if you think maybe you would do it differently, but whatever, you have to take care that you collaborate with them. User-centric thinking, that's something I would say a front-end developer needs, because if I'm working on the backend, I don't take care that much how a user would use my app. It's more like, okay, how can I store the data? How can I compute the data? Or how is it like fast and performant? But in the front end, you have to really think as a user, how would I go through this app if I'm, for example, a completely new user? I never saw this app before. Is it easy to learn? Is it complex? Things like that. So you have to think as a user and make it easy for them. They continuous learning, really important, because those frameworks I mentioned before, they are, they are changing really fast. And that's why you have to learn and learn. Those things, again, you have to check the updates, you have to check what's new, and that's something you have to take care of. So take a look at the internet, that you have maybe some resources, you can get newsletters or whatever, because this is something that's changing a lot. And if you don't be up to date, that could be a big thing at the end that will cost you a lot of effort to update your software or whatever. Then creativity. For sure, you're working at the front end. You're doing the design. You are doing the things the user will see, and that should look nice. That's why you should be creative, and you should be able to think about different options of designs, different variations, that you don't think just, okay, this is my first idea, I will do it. You have to think about it, be creative, and maybe create not only one, but 3 or 4 different options of a design. Then the last thing, feedback acceptance. Again, that's somehow communication again, but you have to accept feedback from other people, and you have to ask for it as well. So if you're working on your own as a front-end developer, sometimes it's like, let's say you work on your own for a month, you have a result at the end, and then somebody gives feedback and say, hey, that's nothing I expect, or not as I expected it, so please change it or whatever. So you should have, or you should take feedback frequently, that you can work on your designs or work on your code accordingly to it. Now, as promised, the frameworks. So here we have the 3 biggest frameworks for JavaScript at the moment that are out there. It's Angular, the left one. In the middle, it's Vue.js, and the right one, React.js. There are a lot of other frameworks as well, but why do I want to mention them only? I don't want to go into detail now what it is doing and whatever. You can somehow do almost the same with all of them. And I also don't want to say this one is the best and that one is bad and whatever. At the moment, I'm working with React a lot, but I'm also interested in learning Angular or Vue.js. So all of them are really good. And if you learn one of them, you would not do anything wrong. But maybe to give you somehow an overview of a statistic. So from the 1st October of 2021 to the 31st October of 2022, here's a statistic, how many jobs are there for React, Angular, Vue.js, and others. And you see React has the most. So maybe for you, if you learn React, it will be a bit easier to find a job there. But also Angular has a lot of jobs there. And maybe just to make it right. So here you see React has a lot of jobs. Angular, yeah, not that much as React, but still enough. But the thing is, there are more React developers out there. So maybe that is somehow the same if you learn React or Angular. For both, it would be really easy to learn or to find a job there because they are really requested. So a lot of people are searching for them. Vue.js is also somehow new. At the moment, I would say it's somehow growing. And yeah, it's growing and growing. So that's also something that is similar to the other two frameworks. And I think in the future, it will be more and more. And the others you see, for sure, there are also others, but there are a lot of other frameworks. But yeah, as I mentioned, those three frameworks are the most popular and you cannot do anything wrong if you learn them or one of them. But now let's go to the practical part, to the cool thing, and let's code something and take a look. You see here in the background already what we want to do now. Let me close that and go to my IDE. Just to explain it, if you want to develop something, you need an IDE. So that's something where you can write code, where you can organize your projects and things like that. I'm using IntelliJ. I can recommend it. It's somehow my favorite IDE, but for the beginning, maybe you can also take a look at Visual Studio Code. That's also something I could recommend, at least if you want to work as a front-end developer. But now let's go to our project. So as I mentioned, you will have some HTML, some JavaScript, and CSS here. And here's here a fourth folder as well, where I have some assets because we need some images. So let's start with the structure HTML. You see we have just one file, and that file we will see then a while in our browser. But let me explain first how it's structured at all, how you will build a HTML file. The first thing is something like in the beginning, you will see always, it just says that it's HTML. And then you have one part, it's called head, where you define things like the title, you define things like the char set, or also you include here scripts like the JavaScript files, or also style sheets for CSS. So in the head, you do everything you want to load in the beginning. Then the body, what is somehow the structure at the end, you will see at the page. So the body is something that will be rendered on the browser page. And there we have, for example, here this one div, what's a container, and you can add there some classes, what will be some identifiers we need later in CSS files to apply some styles there. What we see here as well, it's a really simple HTML. You see it's a lot of code there, sure, but if you understand it now, it's simple. I hope if I explain it, you will understand it. What we have there, we have just 6 lines with 15 images inside. So we have this div, it starts there and it stops here. And inside this div, we have other divs, so other containers. And this container, for example, from this one to this one is 1 image, and we have it 15 times. So we have 15 images inside this container, and we have 6 of those containers. That's how it works. What you see here, let's take a look at this. Maybe I can make it bigger, I hope that you can read it better then. So we have one image container that has somehow background image, and there's a URL that points to the first JPEG. That's this one. So we have a lot of images here that are Disney movie covers. So that's what we are doing there. We provide there an image URL, set the image there, and let me show you how it looks like. So that's it. So you have a white page and you have 6 lines or rows of 15 images. The other rows you cannot see, and we are also not able to scroll. But you see we have those images here, and you see it looks not really nice. So let's change that a bit. And to do so, I would like to check our CSS files. You see here, I prepared 6 different versions of the CSS files. At the end, it's the same, but we will go step by step to make it nice at the end. So let's take the next CSS file, and I will show you, I changed there some things. Let me show you the result first, and then we can discuss what I changed there. So here you see it looks much nicer now. It's somehow a dark background. The images are fully there with a full width. And yeah, it looks much better just by changing the file. But what did I do? Maybe let's take a look at the CSS file first, how it looks like. So you have, as I mentioned, those identifiers. That's, for example, something you will find in the HTML file as well. If you take a look here, that's something that's called here a class. It's the wrapper image. And yeah, this class is something I use to apply some styles on this container with this class. And here you see some keywords. I will not explain all of them, but just that you see there are some. So you can maybe take a look at the internet, what exactly all of them mean, but some of them I will explain to you. So let me show you what I did from step 1 to step 2. So this design to the other one where it's dark and bigger and yeah, nicer. Let's compare those files. So first of all, I added a background just to make it dark. I don't know why, but somehow the dark mode is something that's really popular and also looks nicer here. Maybe just to show you an example how it looks without, it's just white. And in this case, the dark mode just looks better. So we added their color, we say background, and that's a hex code for a color where you can also change it. Then the other thing is the background. So this is for the image container. So that's where the image is inside. And there we have a background position. So we want to make the image centered, that it's not from the beginning and cut it somewhere. Then we want to make the background size to cover that. If you remember in the first version, it was cut it at the half. So now it's the full size. That's what the cover is doing. And flex none is taking care that it has the full width also if it reaches the end of the browser page. So you see here it's cut it, and also the rest of the line you are not seeing. That's what this is doing. And here we have the same of centering the image. Maybe just to explain that, also at the HTML, you see that we have the same image twice. So first we have an image container, and the second one is an image we are using. Just to explain why I'm doing it, at the end of the result, we will have a blur effect. That's why you need a background image. And that's what this container is doing. And this is the original image at the end. Just to explain the background there, but that's why I have it twice. So, but now let's go the next step and see what will change. So it's now like this. And that's not a big difference, but if you look exactly there, you see, for example, let's take this image here and let's take a look at the bottom and the right side, or the sides around the image at all. And now you see it has somehow blur there. It has rounded corners, and some of the images are at the top. So it does not start on the left top corner. It starts in the middle somewhere, and the rest is somehow cut it off at the top. That's what we did now with the second, or with the second changes. Let's take a look at it. So the first thing is that the wrapper images container, what's the outer container where all the lines are inside, we centered it. So that's what I meant. Now it does not start on the left top corner. It starts in the middle. So the whole container is in the middle now. Then this position takes care of it that it does not take care of the parent container. So if you have a container and there's a container inside and you center it, it always takes care that it doesn't go out of the parent container. If you set the position to absolute, it doesn't take care of it and it just thinks about the whole browser somehow in the highest container. Then the next thing, border radius, it's 1 rem. So it just edits the rounded corners. So what is rem? It's somehow like, you can also write pixels there. So px, the thing is now it's smaller. For example, I could write 16, then you would not see any difference there. So 1 rem are 16 pixel. But why do we need it then? The reason is that for pages where you, for example, zoom in, the corners should change regarding to the root element. So where you zoom in or where you make it bigger, so that should be in relation to that one. So now I have zoomed in, so it's 300% zoomed, and you see it has 16 and then multiplies it with 300%. So if I write here now 16 pixel, it will have smaller corners normally. No, then I'm explaining wrong. That's weird. Sorry for that. But normally that's how it works. Maybe for fonts, it's more visible. So for fonts, or what I'm talking about is text. So for text there, you always use it that you have the right text size on small devices, on bigger devices, so it's more for responsibility. So RAM, 1 RAM is 16 pixels, and it's connected to the root element. Then here we do the same. As I mentioned already, we have image container and the image inside, so that's this. Then we have the image again, but one difference is that we have here hover. What does it mean? So it means that if I go over an image, it will change the style. And this is what we define inside here, inside the hover, and here's also again a hover. So that's somehow a selector. If you do something, and if you see, you will see that it lights up somehow, that it's brighter at the end, the blur is bigger, so that you have somehow an interaction that it will be, that you are hovering there, and your cursor change also to this pointer. So that's what we are doing here. So we set the cursor to pointer, and here's another hover where we set the blur. So what you see here outside, we make it bigger. So before that, we had it to 25 pixel, now it's 35 pixel, and that's what we are doing here. Now let's take a look at this block. I will not explain the whole things inside, but that is doing the blur of the current image. So it's changing the background image. Let me show you what happens now. Now the blur is gone, and that's what this is doing. But now it's too much to explain all things there. So just that you know, this is taking care of the blur of the current image. So now we have already a nice result, I would say, but let's make it better and go to the next step. So, okay, what did we change? You directly see it maybe, it's the opacity. So they are somehow a bit like transparent. And we have an interaction. If I hover over it, it will be bigger. It has a better visual feedback that you hover over it and that you can do there maybe something. How do we do that? Let's compare again. So the first thing I mentioned is the opacity we set there. It makes it a bit transparent just to look more, I don't know, it looks just cooler. That's it. So that's what this opacity is doing. You see the syntax with 0.8, it's 80%. You could also write 80%, but sometimes this 0.8 is just simpler to write and you don't have to take care of percentage and whatever. The next one, So you see that there's an animation now. So if I hover over it, it will be bigger. First, let's take a look where we do this animation. It's the keyword transform. So it does mean if we hover over it, it will transform the current object and scale it to 110%. So again, here it's the different writing. You could also write 110%, but just to have it shorter or smaller or easier to write. And that's what's making the image bigger. Let me show you what happens. For example, if I make it to 200, it's something like that. So that's what the scale is doing. But now we have also this transition. You see it sometimes it's here, and it's also here on different elements. That's also connected to the transform. What it's doing, first of all, you define somehow a transition animation type. And the other one is to apply it on all animations, so on all transformations. So everything you do here, you could also change, for example, the width, the opacity, things like that. At the moment, we are changing the scale, and that means that it just appears on all changes. And this is the duration. So let me show you. This is now for 300 milliseconds. Let's do it to, for example, just 3 seconds, that you see what happens. Okay, that's slow. But here you see already, it's taking now 3 seconds to make the whole animation. And that's really slow. Let's change it to 300 milliseconds again. And that's what this transition is doing. It just makes it smooth. Let me show you maybe what happens if I remove it. So you see it's just jumping. It's really fast. It's changing in immediately if I hover over it. And if I add this transition, it makes it just smooth and yeah, looks better. So we have some animations there. What looks really nice, just make some more. And let's go to version 5. So now things are moving. What looks really nice. One thing is that you see also that every second line is faster and they are moving somehow from the right to the left. And you see it starts again from the beginning. Maybe that's something that could be done better, but you see it's just continuing and not stopping anywhere. But let's take a look again at the code, at the CSS code, what we did there. So let's start maybe with this one. So there is somehow a special case. You can define this colon root. That means that you have their style or things that are available through the whole through everything somehow. And why you use it or for what? In the most cases, to define variables. Variables are useful to define some values here, for example, 15 seconds at one place, and then you can reuse it on different styles. And then if you change it here, it will change everywhere. So you don't have to do the work twice. That's why we define here variable duration of 15 seconds. And we use it on other places. You will see it in a while. Yeah, maybe let's start with this one now. Again, something that looks a bit weird or different to the other things. It's keyframes. This is one thing that will execute things periodically. And this is something like the name. So you have a keyframe variable that's called runner that can be used as well. And every in every period, it should execute this transform style. What is this doing? It's translating the X position to minus 10.4% every period it's running. So that's somehow just an animation we configure there. And we can use this runner variable. So you will see on another place, we will use this as well. Then let's take a look at the place where we use both variables. So we have the duration thing and the runner one, and we are doing an animation. What do you do there? You have to define a keyframe animation there first, then a duration. So we could write also 15 seconds here, but we use the variable just that you see how it works. Then the direction, and at the end, if it should do it again and again and again, or if it should stop at the end of the animation. So that's defined here for a line. So that's what you saw there by moving. So they are moving on the X position, and that's what we defined here, for example. Let me show you. If I put this to 50, it will be faster. So it's just moving by 50% every keyframe. So the last thing we changed here is that we can also say, hey, we have this container and I want only the elements that are even. So every child element inside this container that is even should have an animation duration that is 150% faster. So that's what you see here. That is slow, that's 100%. This is faster, that's 150% of the speed. And that's what we are doing here. There are some methods you can use in CSS, like calc. It will calculate something you put inside there. And what we are doing is we put the 15 seconds there and multiply it with 150%. And at the end, that's what you have here. If I say, for example, here 3.5, it will be faster again. So it will multiply. Okay, 3 is maybe not that much. Let's take 10. But you will see it's moving faster than before, and this is slower. Oh, no. Ah, yes, doch. So. Ah, sorry, I was talking about speed. This is, sorry, that was wrong. Makes it slower. So that's what it's doing. Sorry, it's changing the speed of every even column. It's increasing the duration, not the speed. So duration, that's right. So instead of 15 seconds, it will take 15 seconds multiplied by 150%. So that's what we are doing here. Let's take a look at the last change. So somehow the last styling, make it complete. And that's it. So you see now it's somehow 3D. So it's coming from the right bottom corner and it's going to the top left corner. And that's something you can do with CSS as well. So let's take a look what we did there and check it out. So first of all, to make it 3D, there's a transform method again, translate 3D. I will not explain everything there, but you can take a look at the internet and check out just this command. But this is doing it somehow 3D, that it looks like this to come from the left, right bottom corner and goes to the left top corner. And because we are translating there something, we have to change it as well. You see here, for example, left 50%, top 50%. That just means that it changed the position of the current container to the middle somehow. So takes a space from the left 50% and the top. If you see it without it, for example, you will see that it's somehow, not in the middle. And that's because we are doing this translate 3D thing. You see also the 50%, what it's doing there. And we just correct the position there. Then another thing on the image line, we increased the speed of the animation again. So if I remove that one, it's just slower. That's also not bad, but just to make it a bit more fancy, we made it faster. That's it. So you see, not a lot of code. We, did a nice wall, I would say. Looks really nice. But let's play a bit around with JavaScript as well. So I will not explain the language a lot because this is something, we don't have enough time for. But what it is doing, it's using a library, for example, here. That's what I meant. You can use a lot of frameworks and libraries and whatever, and I'm including them from here. So I'm including some other libraries. This is jQuery, another framework for JavaScript, and this is just a library to change some styling as well on a container. And what it's doing is it's checking the cursor position you see here, for example, and then it's changing the style of this wrapper images container. So the root container where all the images are inside. So let's activate this JavaScript script and see what happens with our wall. So here you see it will change the position and styling and rotate somehow if I'm changing my cursor position. So that's what JavaScript is doing. You can do something with data, or with something from the user. With my mouse, for example, if I click something, you can do things. So let's imagine if I click on this image, I would like to have a dialog where it's open and whatever. That's something you would do with JavaScript at the end. So yeah, I hope I could give you a short overview about JavaScript or front-end development at all the fundamental things, and that you saw how interesting it is to be a front-end developer, how nice things you can do with not much code, that you can do the animations, make it fancy, and what possibilities you have there.